Daf Yomi, Tractate Shevuos, page Gimel, Gimel of an Aleph, top of the page, with the words V'al Hazakan, Shtayim, Mikan, Ushtayim Mikan, V'achas L'mata. Gimel of an Aleph, Mesechtes Shevuos, or Mesechet Shavuot, depending on your flavor. And for marring the edges of his beard, there are two edges from here on one side of his face, and two from there on the other side, and one from below. The Gemara explains, as apparent from the Mishnah in Makot, this is a case where there is one prohibition for which one is liable to receive two punishments. Continuing on this theme, the Tana taught in the beginning of Tractate Shevuot examples of other sets of halachot that can be formulated similarly, beginning with regard to oaths on an utterance. There are two types that are actually four types. What is different The Gemara inquires, what is different here in Tractate Shevuot that the Mishnah teaches all the sets of halachot that can be formulated as two that are four, and what is different with regard to the chapter beginning the acts of carrying out that are prohibited on Shabbat, meaning the first chapter of Shabbat, and the chapter beginning and the shades of leprous marks, Negaim, the first chapter of Tractate Negaim, where the Mishnah does not teach all of them, rather only the specific set of halachot relevant to that tractate. Amri Shavuot Vidiot Atuma Diga Be'adadi Ketivat Ketivan Vidaviana Dadi Bikavan Olav Yored Tanelu Gabe Hadadi Viadi Tanitardi Tanahulu. The sages say in explanation, since the passages of oaths and of liability based on one's awareness of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods are written together in the Torah, see Leviticus 5, 2-4, and they are also similar to each other in that they can both incur liability to bring a sliding scale offering. The Mishnah therefore taught both of them together here. And once it already taught two sets, it continued and taught all of them. Psach b'Shvuos u'mefarash yediyas hatumo aidi dezutran milayu kasik shailahu v'hadar tane Shevuos dinafsha milayu. The Gemara inquires further. Tractate Shevuos opens with a reference of oaths, but then proceeds to explain the cases of one's awareness of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods, returning to discuss oaths only in the third chapter. Why? The Gemara explains, since the cases of one's awareness of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods are relatively few, the Tana addressed them directly and dispensed with them, and then afterward returned to teach the halachot of oaths, which have numerous details. Shevuos, Shtayim Shehein Arba, Shtayim She'oichel V'Shelo Oichel, Shehein Arba Achanti V'Shelo Achanti. The Mishnah teaches with regard to oaths on an utterance, there are two types that are actually four types. The Gemara explains the two types are where one states, on my oath I will eat, and where he states, on my oath I will not eat. If he violates either oath, he is liable to bring a sliding scale offering. These are two types. These two types are actually four types because they also include the cases where a person falsely states, on my oath I ate, and where he falsely states, on my oath I did not eat. The Mishnah continues. With regard to cases of one's awareness of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods for which one is liable to bring a sliding scale offering, there are two cases that are actually four. The Gemara explains the two cases are where one's lack of awareness of the fact that he was ritually impure led him to eat sacrificial food, and where one's lack of awareness of the fact that he was ritually impure led him to enter the temple. These two types are actually four types because one is also liable where he was aware that he was impure but had a lapse of awareness about the status of the sacrificial food or the identity of the temple. Yitziot Shabbat Shtayim Shehin Alba Shtayim Otza Diani V'Hoitza Lebalbayis Shehin Alba Achnas Diani V'Hoitza Lebalbayis. The Mishnah continues with regard to acts of carrying out that are prohibited on Shabbat. There are two types that are four. The Gemara explains the cases by using the analogy of a poor person who remains in the public domain and a homeowner who remains in the private domain, and one passes an item to the other. The two types are the carrying out by a poor person of an item from the private domain to the public domain, and the carrying out by a homeowner of an item from the private domain to the public domain. These two types are actually four types because they also include the bringing in by a poor person of an item from the public domain to the private domain, and the bringing in by a homeowner of an item from the public domain to the private domain. Ma'ot nigaim shnayim sheina alba'a shnayim se'et ubaheret shein alba se'et v'tuleta baher v'tuladeta. I wonder why they didn't mention sapachat. The Mishnahs find an example with regard to shades of leprous marks. There are two shades that are actually four. The Gemara explains the two shades are of wool white leprous mark, se'et, and of a snow white leprous mark, baheret. Wool and snow. Okay. These two are actually four because they also include a se'et and its secondary mark, meaning one similar to it, and a beheret and its secondary mark, one similar to it. Mani masnisin v'lo Rabbi Ishmael v'lo Rabbi Akiva I Rabbi Ishmael ha'omer eno chai ela al hati lavo I Rabbi Akiva ha'omar al ha'elem tuma hu chayav ve'eno chayav al ha'elem k'dash. The Gemara asks, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? It is neither the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael nor the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara elaborates, if one suggests that it is the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, that suggestion can be refuted, as doesn't he say with regard to oaths, one is liable only for oaths pertaining to the future, but not for those pertaining to the past? The Mishnah states that one is liable also for oaths pertaining to the past, and if one suggests it is an opinion, the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, that suggestion can be refuted, as doesn't he say, for having defiled the temple or its sacrificial foods during a lapse of awareness of the fact that one is ritually impure, one is liable to bring a sliding scale offering, but one is not liable for having done so during a lapse of awareness of the fact that the place he entered was actually the temple. The Mishnah states that one is liable also in such a case. I ba'is ema Rabbi Shmuel, I ba'is ema Rabbi Akiva, I ba'is ema Rabbi Shmuel, melchi umehen lifto, I ba'is ema Rabbi Akiva, mehen lechiyuv, umehen lifto. The Gemara answers, if you wish, say that the Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, and if you wish, say that the Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara elaborates, if you wish, say that the Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, and the intent of the Mishnah is that while there are 4 types of oaths, among them are types for which there is liability to bring an offering for one who violates them, and among them are types for which there is an exemption from liability for one who violates them. And if you wish, say that the Mishnah expresses the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, and the intent of the Mishnah is that while there are 4 cases defined by one's awareness of the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods, among them are cases for which there is liability to bring an offering, and among them are cases for which there is exemption from liability. Liftor, the Gemara asks, how can one say that the Mishnah teaches types for which there is exemption from liability?